Yo, what is happening? What is happening, y'all? It is me coming back at you again with another live stream vid. Okay, as promised, I'm gonna go ahead and do a recap of this weekend's boxing event. I did have a chance to watch the Matchroom card, which was co-featured, I should say, or the main card. The main event was Kid Gallahan versus Maxie Hughes, and the co-main event was Terry Harper versus Harper-Rankin. And I'll be honest with you guys, I couldn't really watch the Kid Gallahan and the Maxie Hughes fight because it was just it was not entertaining, to be honest with you. And I mean, it was a matchup between two guys who are at a crossroads right now, and ultimately Maxie Hughes won that fight. That's all I need to say about that. Kid Gallahan, does he have anything left afterwards? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe he'll be used as a gatekeeper going forward, at this stage of his career. I don't know, but it is what it is. That's all I need to say about that fight. But I will definitely going to get into the Harper-Rankin and the Terry Harper fight in detail. But I'm gonna just go through the list of topics. I'll go through them, each by line. But yeah, I will. So let's get to it. So first things first. Shout out once again to Joe Joyce for his major win and great victory over Joseph Parker. Hard fought win and deserving win. Just to recap how it went, Joe Joyce battered and destroyed Joseph Parker from the first round to the end, and while the fight lasted for 11 rounds. The fight ended in the 11th round KO, with Joseph Parker his face being brutalized. I mean, with the left, with the right, with a bad cut above his right eye, and his left eye bashed in and damaged, along with a bloody nose. Maybe his nose was broken. I don't know, but he suffered some huge damage in that fight. A lot of damage. I mean, it got to the point that, I felt, looking back at that fight, I felt that fight should have been stopped around the eighth round, because, Parker's team shouldn't have let him go back out there and take more punishment. And that's exactly what happened. He just really had no chance, stood no chance against Joe Joyce, especially the beating he was taking earlier in the fight, going into the mid and late rounds. So it is what it is. What's next for Joyce? I did speak about this actually I did speak about this. I actually commented about this on Outlaw Pugilist channel. Shout out to Outlaw Pugilist. I mentioned that Frank Warren is mentioned. I think I mentioned it about my live stream as well. I have to go back and go listen to the playback on that. Frank Warren is now trying to tailor and trying to angle the Joe Joyce's next move, and he's mentioned Alexander Usyk. And to me, when I hear something like that, it seems to me that Tyson Fury is going to, or Frank Warren and company, they're going to use Joe Joyce as a guard dog to keep him away from Alexander Usyk, meaning Tyson Fury. And the reason why I say that, because I really believe that Tyson Fury does not really want to fight Alexander Usyk at this moment. And why do I say this? I know Tyson Fury is running his fucking mouth, excuse my language, talking about how Usyk ducked out of the December date, blah, 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 when Alexander Usyk himself didn't even mention that he wanted to fight in December. He said he would not be ready in December. He actually will fight him in February and March. In fact, furthermore, even Tyson Fury's promoters even said this before Usyk made that comment. All right. They've said that it will be not realistic to have that undisputed fight in December. It'd be best to have it in February or March. And then Tyson Fury's dumbass, and like he does, being methodical and being very cynical, his dumbass fan base, pretty much would prey on that. And they ate that up and said, well, Usyk's ducked the fight for December. No, he didn't duck the fight. He never mentioned about fighting December. All it was is that he was presented the question about fighting Tyson Fury December. He said, no. First things first, that's not realistic. I'm recovering from old injuries, and I'll be ready in February, March. And yet, again, Tyson Fury is the one jumped on it, saying that Usyk is ducking the fight. Although people don't call him out for this, I wish people do. If you say that you're ready to fight Usyk, you're ready to fight him anytime, anywhere, any place, right? You say that, right? Then why the hell did you duck the fight back in February, Tyson Fury? Why did you duck the fight when you had a chance to fight him then? Usyk was ready to go to fight you then, but you ducked the fight. You came back and said, well, I'm not fighting Usyk unless I get a couple of one or two interim fights. So I wish people would challenge him on that because again, you can't go out and talk about Usyk saying he's not ready to fight me. I'll fight him anywhere, anytime, any place. And yet you avoided him in February when it was the time for you to fight him. You didn't want to fight him then. So I wish some people would call him out on that. But I digress. Let me get back to Joe Joyce. Again, what's his next move? Preferably, I think Joe Joyce should fight Tyson Fury. But again, that's up to Tyson Fury. That's up to him what he wants to do. But more than likely, he's not going to want that fight. He's not going to want that fight. And let's not get it twisted. I do favor Fury to win that fight, but this is not going to be the guy where he feels he's going to have a weight or strength advantage over him. He's not. I don't care what Tyson Fury says. He could say that he's bigger than Joe Joyce. He has more strength than him. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Because Joe Joyce is a naturally big guy. He's a naturally bigger guy than Tyson Fury. We all see it. We all know that. The only thing Tyson Fury can do is use his legs and use his boxing IQ to outpoint the guy. He's not going to stand in front of him toe to toe and outslug the guy. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So, anyhow, I don't see that fight happening, but I prefer to have that fight. But the one thing I do not want to see, and let's not get it twisted either, I do want to see Usyk versus Joyce. That rematch is long overdue. It's time. Okay, I do want to see that. Let's not get it twisted. What I do not want to see is Frank Warren and Tyson Fury using Joe Joyce as a guard dog to go after Alexander Usyk, so that way they can stall that fight longer. So if they do fight, Joe Joyce will soften up Usyk, slow him down. Then it'll be a perfect time for them to fight him. No, I don't want to see that. That's the same crap that Eddie Hearn used for Dillian White against Deontay Wilder. Again, let's not get it twisted. Definitely wanted to see that fight. I think Deontay should have taken that fight. But if you read between the lines, Eddie Hearn was using Dillian White to hopefully soften up Deontay Wilder. So hopefully then they would go ahead and make that fight. That's the way I saw it back then. But I just don't like when fighters do that crap. I really don't. When promoters use these guard dogs to protect their investment. I really don't like that. But, let's just wait and see how everything pans out. But I pray to God that's not the direction that Queensberry is going to go with Joe Joyce. So we'll have to wait and see. A lot of comments are coming in. So, yeah, Outlaw, salute, man. Salute, brother. Yeah, Olaf the Mighty. Shout out to the Mala. Mala says the first 4 rounds were competitive, but it was the fifth round that Joyce started to take over. Yeah, it was. They were competitive, but what's striking is that Joseph Parker hit Joe Joyce with some shots that any other heavyweight would have respected, but Joe Joyce just ate those shots and just kept coming at him. He didn't really respect Joseph Parker's power at all. He didn't. And that right there is mentally fatiguing, and that mentally shoots you down as an opposing fighter. So again, I say my opinion on this. I think that fight should have been stopped between maybe 8th and 9th round, to be honest with you, because Parker was taking way too much punishment. And besides, if you look at the punch stats, I'm going to bring that up shortly too in a minute. Actually, I'm going to bring it up right now since we're on that. I'm going to bring up the final punch stats because as I recall, Joseph Parker took 340 total punches from Joe Joyce, and Joseph Parker only landed by 180. That right there is a very, very high output before the 12th round. Punches landed. And I think that's the most punches anyone's ever landed on Joseph Parker. And let's not get it twisted. Parker is a very good defensive fighter, but I have to go back and allude to this. I think the weight game that he had really it really undermined and it compromised his best attributes, which is his defense, his split speed, and his hand speed. Again, I think Tyson Fury is the one who advised him to gain the extra weight, so that way he can oppose and survive the onslaught of the strength and size of Joe Joyce. You can't do that. You're not going to outstrength the guy. That's not going to happen. You got to use your best attributes against him. To beat Joe Joyce, you're going to have to outsmart him. You're going to have to give him angles. You got to box him in circles. You have to do that. You're going to have to outpunch him. That's the only way to beat a guy like that. You can't just stand there and stand toe-to-toe and think you can outslug him and outstrength him. That's not going to happen. So, yeah, that was just a terrible game plan by Joseph Parker and his team. Terrible game plan. But give Joseph credit. He's fought, his best. He had a lot of heart. And he spoke out the day after. I'm going to get into that shortly. But let me just go ahead and look at the punch stat between Joe Joyce and Joseph Parker. I'm going to bring this up because it's very striking if you ask me. So let me see here. So we're going to look at the total CompuBox. We're going to look at everything here. So let me see. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share this, guys. I'm gonna show you this number. It's very striking on the punch stats. So let's see here. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So just bear with me, guys. Here we go. Got it. So here we are. So if you look at it, jabs landed, right? So if you look at the punch stats, the jabs, no question there. Joe Joyce dominated in that department. And there was actually a couple rounds here that Joseph Parker didn't even land a jab. He threw a lot, but he didn't land any. And that was in round 6 and 9. That right there is a striking number. Striking stat, I should say. Now, as far as power punch is concerned, I think this is where Joseph Parker had some success in some of the rounds as far as the power punches landed. But again, if you look at those 4th and 5th round where he outlanded Joe Joyce in the power punches, but he was getting dominated by the jabs. And you can also tell that those jabs that Joe Joyce was landing on Parker was really hurting him. And in fact, Joseph Parker even said himself in the interview today that he gave with ID Boxing, shout out to Rob Tibbett. He even said that the jabs that that Joe Joyce was landing on him, they're very deceptive. They may not look like they hurt because he's throwing them at a very, slow speed from, if you're looking at, if you're looking from the outside in, but those jabs hurt. They're thudding. That's what Joseph Parker said. He said those jabs were even stinging him. They were hurting him, and he was surprised by that. So, yeah, and that's what killed. That's what I'm saying. What killed literally, but that's what really hurt Joseph Parker throughout the fight is mainly those jabs that Joe Joyce was landing on him. In fact, those are the jabs that actually hurt Daniel Dubois that busted up his eye. So, yeah, you got to watch out for that Joyce jab, man. That is very, very deceptive. Whatnot. Hold on, guys. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Forgive me. Sorry, guys. Sorry, it took a while. I'm back. So, I had to pick up some groceries. So, yeah. Anyways, let me go ahead and go back to this right here. So going back to the punch stats, I'm gonna go ahead and reshare my screen. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm back, Olaf. Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to the punch stats here. So let's see here. So again, the power shots. That's where the only success that Joseph Parker had in, like, I think about 4 rounds. I think you would see rounds 2, rounds 3, rounds 4, and that was it. Even in those rounds, Joseph, in my opinion, well, not my opinion, but my opinion, because I think, scoring can be subjective sometimes. But if you look at it, those are the only 3 rounds. Even in those 3 rounds, Joyce actually still dominated Joseph Parker. So, yeah. So that there you go. But if you look at the final punch stat, this is a striking number. Total punches landed. Joyce landed 308 punches and he threw 844 at a 37% connect rate. Now, the connect rate really doesn't mean much, but it's still striking because Joseph Parker threw 566 punches and landed 147. Jabs, look at that. Total wipeout. Power punches, total wipeout right here. That right there are staggering numbers right there. That goes to show you how badly beaten Joseph Parker was, how badly beaten he was, and how he was dominated by Joe Joyce. So I wanted to show that real quickly, that how staggering those numbers are, whatnot. So yeah, now, yeah, speaking of Joseph Parker, yeah, salute to you, Outlaw. Olaf says that I had a clean sweep for Joyce. Just look at the punch stats and tell me Parker won a round. Yeah, you know what? You could give him I gave him 2 rounds. I rewatched the fight again. I think the only rounds I gave him was probably the first or second round. I think it was the first round. I think the third round. No, Joyce won that third round. I think maybe the 5th round I gave Parker because he did a little bit of work. I think it was the 5th round. But after that, it was all done. It was all pretty much a sweep from Joe Joyce after that. So, yeah, if you think you had a clean sweep, then I can't argue that because the rounds that Parker did win, they were close rounds. You could have swung it for either man, either Joyce or Parker. It wasn't like he dominated the rounds that he won. I mean, Joe Joyce, when he won the rounds, he won the rounds. He dominated the rounds. So yeah, I can see where your argument is, Olaf. Yeah, but Mala does not agree with you. He doesn't agree that was a total sweep. But yeah, it is subjective. But at the same time, the rounds that Parker did win, they were very close rounds. You could have swung it for Joyce if you wanted to. So yeah. Yeah, Outlaw says, look, Tyson Fury is full of cap. Yeah, he always been full of cap. He's a guy who's bipolar. I'm not sure if he's suffering from brain damage right now because if you ask me, the dude looked like he was out of it in those interviews, man. I'm only speculating. This is not absolute because I understand a lot of YouTubers get sued for putting out false information. I get it. But what I'm seeing from looking from the outside in, Tyson Fury looked like he was under the influence. In fact, some of his speech was a bit off too. That was just me. I mean, I know some people say, "Nah, man, you're capping, Dan. That can't be." I was like, "No, look at his behavior in that Joseph Parker fight. Something is off about the guy. I know he was off before, but something is really not right." I mean, to me, it looked like he was under the influence of something. I don't know, but somebody really need to check on him because his behavior and his speech patterns is a little bit off to me. I don't know. It's just me. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I don't know. But yeah, but anyway, Olaf says that I didn't give Parker any rounds. Let's be honest, Parker needed to sweep the first 5 rounds to even have a prayer winning. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm hearing that Joyce has a bone density of 6 times of the normal human. If that's true, then he's really a mutant. Well, the number I heard was 5. And what I've also heard is that the reason why Joyce has that great durability that he has right now because he often trained with rugby players. When rugby players, when you play rugby, you got to have a lot of not just endurance, but you got to have a lot of a lot of durability, because those guys take a lot of hard hits, especially if there's no padding, no helmets like you see in gridiron American football. Yeah, you got to have a great durability to compete in a sport like that. So that's probably why Joe Joyce has the durability that he has right now. One, because he's a naturally bigger guy. He's always been a naturally big guy. And two, is like he always trains with rugby players. So that right there is probably the reason why I believe he has the bone density of a 5, which is, 3 times the normal of a human's bone density, I think. So, yeah. Yeah. Excuse me. Model says that 340, yeah, that is shocking. He landed 340 punches on Joseph Parker. And again, the jabs was just unbelievable. He landed 106 jabs on Joseph Parker. It threw 364, and power punches connected 202 power punches. Wow. Wow. Talk about domination right there. Yeah, I was expecting Parker to come in at 240. Yeah, I was expecting that too. Because again, why would you sacrifice your greatest attributes? This is where I was pissed off at Deontay Wilder for doing for the last 2 Tyson Fury fights. Why would you pack on so much weight, particularly if it's all muscle and some bit of body fat? Why would you do that just to compromise your best attributes, which is your agility, your foot speed, and your hand speed? Why would you do that? And your endurance. And that's why I was pissed off at Wilder for doing that. You're not going to outstrength the guy. That's not going to happen. The guy, Tyson Fury, that is, and Joe Joyce. Those guys were always going to have the strength game over you. That's just no way. There's no way around it. The way to beat those guys is that you can't stand in front of them. You got to give them angles. You got to use your foot speed to get out of the way of their punches and their jab. Use your elusiveness. That's what got you through fights, Deontay, and that's what got Joseph Parker through fights. But yet they sacrificed all that just for strength. And look what happened to them. It cost them, and they got bad beatings because as an end result of that. Now, again, I think Tyson Fury advised Joseph Parker to come in around 255 to avoid the onslaught of Joe Joyce. But that was a stupid thing to do, to be honest with you. It was a dumb thing to do. So, yeah. The Joyce and Parker fight reminds me of the first Holyfield Bowe fight. I don't know about that. Maybe there are some similarities there, but I would say, though, the only thing I would say is that Riddick Bowe took a lot of punches in that fight. He took a lot of big blows. Yes, he was a rifle winner, but Evander Holyfield hurt him several times in that fight. Joseph Parker didn't even come close to hurting Joe Joyce. Not even close. Not even close. I mean, he barely put a scratch on his face, to be honest with you. I know at the end of the fight, there was a couple of nicks underneath Joe Joyce's eyes. But other than that, yeah, he didn't really put a dent on the guy. I mean, Riddick Bowe, on the other hand, yeah, I mean, he's not known to be a bleeder, but he was hurt several times against Holyfield in that first fight. So, yeah, I kind of agree with that statement. But, at the same time, there are some differences between those two fights. Joyce does deserve a title shot, long overdue. Yeah, he definitely does. And I think what's also long overdue is that Alexander Usyk rematch. I think that's long overdue. Now that Usyk is the WBO and unified champion, I know the WBO mandatory is not due right now, but I think Frank Warren is going to try to push it, and that's why I'm pissed off about that. Because why you want to push that fight over the undisputed fight? Why can't you guys wait until that's done and wait until Usyk and Fury settle who's the true champion, and then after that, then Joe Joyce is going to get the shot at the winner. That's the way it should go. Olive says, I was just watching Holyfield and Foreman. That's how you beat Joyce, with combination punches, activity, movement. Fury and Usyk will probably have the attributes to get the job done, but nobody else does. Yeah, but we all know Usyk already beat Joe Joyce in the amateurs several years ago. That was the WSB. And some people are going to ask that question, why is that so important? That's the amateurs. Well, the reason why that's important because the WSB, where the fight took place, is a semi-pro competition, where instead of scoring the rounds by the total punches connected in a round, they actually score it on the 10-point must systems in the WSB. So those guys weren't wearing headgears. They were pretty much shirtless. I mean, no homo, no cap, pause. But again, the point is that those guys were fighting in a pro fight structure in the WSB. So that's why it's important to bring that up. Yes, it was only 5 rounds, but still, it was scoring on a 10-point must system, and they were fighting in a pro fight structure. That's why it's important. If you look at that fight, Joyce got dominated by Usyk. Usyk dominated him, beat the crap out of him. So yes, times has changed. Joyce has vastly improved after that fight, but so is Alexander Usyk. So don't expect the same Usyk that fought and beat Joyce several years ago is going to be that same guy. No, it's a much better Alexander Usyk. So Joyce, if they're ever going to fight, that's why that fight is very intriguing, and we have to see that rematch. I still think Usyk is going to win because he fights at levels that people are not accustomed to. And I think Joyce is prepared for that because he's also shown that he can show some different bit of gears, but I think it won't be enough against Usyk. Look. But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued to see that, but I think that can wait until after Usyk versus Fury is concluded. If you ask me who's going to win that fight, I think it's going to be Alexander Usyk. Yeah. So, yeah, Olaf says that yeah, that's nuts for heavyweights, especially since Parker was running the whole fight. Well, I mean, yeah, but it's just that it's hard to get away from a long jab like that. As Parker said himself, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about that interview that he gave with ID Boxing when he speaks out. He said that jab was so deceptive. Sometimes you think it's coming at a slow pace, but out of nowhere, it's a fast snapping jab. And even if it's thrown slowly, that jab is hurting you. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, he was trying to run. I think that was the best thing he could do is run and get, hit and get out of the way against Joyce, but he still couldn't get out of the way of the jab. And obviously, it has something to do with that extra weight. Because Joseph Parker is not a naturally 255-pound guy. We know that he's not. His optimal weight is around 235, 235, maybe 240. That's it. And all that extra weight really was, I think that was one of the main reasons why he lost that fight. Hey, Outlaw, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Hey, I don't really ask this, guys, but if you please smash that like button for me, I greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it. Yo, Brotherhood's in the chat. What's up, Brotherhood? Mala says that Joyce would have beaten Anthony Joshua and it probably wouldn't have gone past 6 rounds. You know what? There is some chatter about that fight being made. I'm going to say this right now. And Olaf and probably everybody else and even Outlaw can agree to this. And the Outlaw is an Anthony Joshua fan. Do not put Anthony Joshua in there with Joyce right now because that's going to end in a massacre at this point. Don't do it because right now Joshua needs some confidence building fights. He's coming back-to-back losses against Alexander Usyk. He's lost 3 of his last 5 fights, and his confidence is not where it should be right now, especially on world level. So it'd be best to not even mention Joyce when you're trying to rebuild Anthony Joshua's career. Do not put Joshua in there against Joyce because it's going to end very badly right now. Yes, Joshua beat Joyce in the amateurs many years ago, but that right there was a very, very long time ago. And Joyce is a much better fighter after that loss. So I would say this though: if this was the Anthony Joshua before the Andrew Ruiz loss, who's knocking a lot of people out, who's on a massive fight winning streak, then yeah, I would say Anthony Joshua would beat him right now. But no, not this Anthony Joshua. Do not put Anthony Joshua in there with Joyce. I think Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and DAZN are very wise to know the consequences if they make that fight. No, don't do it. Don't even talk about that fight. This shouldn't even be brought up, to be honest with you. Some people are even bringing up this narrative that Joshua would beat Joyce right now. No, he does not. I'm sorry. He does not beat him right now, especially when a guy's coming off back-to-back losses and lost 3 of his last 5, and his confidence is shot right now. No. Don't put him in there against Joyce. Don't do it. Yeah, Brotherhood says he's a British Foreman. Yeah, you know what? He does remind me of George Foreman. He does. Again, I mentioned this yesterday on my live stream. The only thing I would say that Joyce does have, as far as technique-wise, as far as skill-wise, the couple of things that Joyce does have an advantage over George Foreman is that he does have very fast feet. He has very fast feet. He actually throws straighter shots more so than Foreman does. And then, to be fair, the prime George Foreman didn't really throw straight punches. But the older version of George Foreman, the one who got wiser, came out of 10-year retirement, he actually threw more straight shots than he actually looped them like he did in his prime. But Joyce actually has a faster jab than George Foreman. So what does that tell you? But as far as, again, pedigree wise, we all know Foreman is the greater fighter. Always been a greater fighter than Joe Joyce at the moment. But we'll have to wait and see what Joe Joyce does at the later stage of his career. So yeah, definitely some similarities there. In fact, we haven't seen a heavyweight like George Foreman in a very, very, very long time. I think now, hey, UK, embrace Joe Joyce, man. You guys got a new pay-per-view star. I think potentially you do. And I think Frank Warren sees that right now. In fact, Frank Warren was probably not happy about the beating that he gave Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, that is. He really didn't want Joyce to win that fight. But hey, at the same time, it paid off. Why? Because you headlined Joe Joyce against Joseph Parker for the pay-per-view. I think the event sold okay. I don't think it sold out, but I think they sold pretty well. It overshadowed the Matchroom event. Joe Joyce was dominant. He closed the show. So yeah, it worked out fine. You know, instead of trying to, capitalize on Dubois, now you can capitalize on Joe Joyce, Frank Warren, that is. Now you got two moneymakers in the heavyweight division, Frank Warren. You got Tyson Fury. You got Joe Joyce. Daniel Dubois is on the rebuilding stages right now. So, yeah. And he's got Martin McCauley. So, yeah, Martin McCauley is on the up and coming right now. So, yeah, it looks like Frank Warren is taking over the heavyweight division from the looks of it. From the looks of it, he is. Olaf says Joyce would wash AJ. AJ won't take that fight and get humiliated. Yeah, I agree. Shout out to Fight Doctor in the chat. Fight Doctor said Joyce is a KO waiting to happen. Yeah, it depends who he goes up against. If it's Deontay Wilder, maybe, but we have to see what Wilder looks like, from a physical standpoint going into the Helenius fight. Maybe. As I recall, several years ago, people were saying that about George Foreman. I mean, obviously before the Ali loss, but after that, people were still saying that George Foreman was a KO waiting to happen. And since then, after that Ali loss, nobody's been able to knock him out. So yeah, Ron Lyle came close, but after that, well, still though, Ron Lyle couldn't get the job done. And shout out to Ron Lyle. Rest in peace to Ron Lyle. So Mala says the similarity between with the first Holyfield and Bo fight was Holyfield, the smaller man, standing in front of Bo, and the bigger man trying to match him with power and strength with him. It was tactically stupid. Yeah, I agree with that. Totally agree with that. I don't know why Evander decided to try to trade with him, because that was the only way Riddick Bowe could beat him, is trading with him. But if you look in the second fight, the adjustment that Evander made is that he gave Bowe some angles, and that's something Bowe was not accustomed to. So that's why he was able to out punch him and outsmart him in the second fight. He didn't really stand in front of him like he did in the first fight. So yeah, totally agree with that there. Shut up, E. I knew EJ's gonna be in the chat. Let me see. The Brotherhood says that AJ would knock Joyce out again. I don't know about that, Brotherhood. I really don't. Not at right now, man. I don't think AJ would beat Joe Joyce. Not right now. Not right now. He just says that Dan hating again. Usyk is going down to Joe Joyce. Hey, you know what? It could happen. Not saying it. Joe Joyce has a great chance to beat Usyk, but I just think Usyk is just a bit smarter than him. I really believe that. So it's my opinion. But if Joe Joyce does beat Alexander Usyk, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't. The Brotherhood. Yeah, he's saying Brotherhood. AJ would gas out against Joyce. Yeah, he would. He would, because I don't think Joshua could fight at a tempo at the pace of Joe Joyce. I really don't think he can. I mean, he barely could keep up with Usyk. What makes you think that that Joshua can keep up with Joe Joyce's pace? I just don't see it. yeah, EJ. Here's something EJ and I can agree with. Fury is running away from Joe Joyce. Yeah, Fury's not gonna want no part of Joe Joyce. He wants no part of him. I don't see any emphasis of Tyson Fury wanting to take that fight at all. No emphasis. In fact, if you look at Tyson Fury's facial expressions after that Joseph Parker beating, right? I think he was interviewed by some correspondent. I forgot her name. The Queensberry correspondent. And he did not look happy at all about the way Joseph Parker took that beating. He looked visibly upset about that. And I think part of the reason why he's upset, because he was the one, I believe, and this is my speculation, I believe he's the one who helped drew up the strategy and the tactics of beating Joe Joyce. If he was the one that actually did that, then that was a dumbass move by Tyson Fury. Dumbass move. Why would you advise him to gain extra weight that he's not accustomed to? Why would you tell him to do that? Oh man. Sparring isn't the same as real fighting. Well, that's the truth. Sparring is sparring. So yeah, Parker slowed down. Slow down to Joe Joyce past Dan. Okay, yeah, he did slow down. Open your eyes, Dan. Well, okay, well, like I said though, I'm not doubting if you think Joe Joyce will beat Usyk. Hey, I don't disagree with you. I think Joe Joyce has a much better shot beat Usyk than Anthony Joshua. Styles make fights. I think he has a way better shot. And the reason why I say that because Usyk actually has the cardio to keep up with Usyk. Joe Joyce, that is. He has a cardio to keep up with him. So, in fact, I don't think Joe Joyce will give Usyk much respect. I mean, he didn't really give him respect in their fight in WSB days, but Usyk didn't care, and he still threw a lot of punches at him and landed. So, yeah, I give Joe Joyce a much better shot than Anthony Joshua, but I still think Usyk is still a little bit more craftier. That's just my opinion. Shout out to Tony Reviews. Tony says that when Joyce fought Usyk, he was only 180 pounds. However, Usyk did beat him pretty easily. Yeah, I mean, 180 pounds. Now, Usyk weighed a little bit more than that. I think he was 205 when he fought him. And Joyce was right around 221, 222. I mean, they were both lighter back then. But yeah, but obviously Joe Joyce was still the bigger man, way bigger man than Usyk during that fight back then. But yeah, Dubois is a poor man's version of Anthony Joshua, and he nearly beat Joyce. Well, you know what? Yeah, he was up on the cards before before the stoppage, but honestly, I thought Joe Joyce was winning that fight before the stoppage. And I think if Daniel Dubois would have survived the next 2 rounds, he would have gotten the decision, and some people would have screamed robbery. But unfortunately for him, his eye was badly messed up. He had a broken orbital bone, and he quit. There's no shame in that, but he didn't want to compromise his eye vision. He knew mentally where the fight was going. He couldn't get out of the way of the jab or the power punches of Joyce, and it was breaking him down. So that's why he gave up. No shame in that. You got to live and fight another day. EJ says that Fury Boy Parker is done. I mean, you know what? Speaking of that, let me talk about that Joseph Parker interview in a little bit of detail. He was asked about his boxing career going forward. He said, look, he definitely want to get back in there as soon as possible. But at the same time, he did contradict himself when he said that, well, I'm going to go back to New Zealand. I'm going to spend time with my wife and kids. And my grandfather, I haven't seen him for a couple of years. That it's long overdue. I have to go see him in Fiji, or Samoa, I should say. So, yeah. So basically, Joseph Parker has said that I want to get back in the ring as soon as possible, but at the same time, I am due for a long vacation. So honestly, we're not going to see Joseph Parker for the remainder of the year. We probably see him back in the ring probably mid to late next year, and I think that's wise because he's got to recover from his injuries. I mean, he's had some tough fights, with the two Chisora fights, and this one, the beating that he took from Joe Joyce, man. Yeah, not saying he should retire. He definitely should not retire. I think he's got a lot more to offer. Um, but he did say one thing that kind of that was kind of stuck out to me. He said that he would love to fight Joe Joyce again. Hear me out. He said, quote, I would love to fight Joe Joyce again, but I do realize it's a long road for me to even get a rematch with Joyce. Now, look, I'm not gonna laugh at him because I like Joseph a lot and I respect him. Aside from the fact that he was a Tyson Fury fanboy, I didn't appreciate that at all. But I know some people are gonna call him delusional for wanting to go back in here against Joe Joyce, but at the same time, look, he's a fighter. He's a warrior. He has heart. If he feels that I made some mistakes, I know what to do now in the rematch against Joyce, so be it. That's up to him if he feels that he can go back in there and correct the mistakes with him. But I still don't think he's going to beat Joe Joyce, even if he makes the adjustments. I think Joe Joyce has his number. That's just my opinion. I think Dubois is a top 10 heavyweight. He was Spark Parker for sure. Well, this version of Joseph Parker that got beat down by Joe Joyce, yeah, Daniel Dubois probably has a shot. But however, I'm not going to say that's a foregone conclusion, to be honest with you. I think that Joseph Parker actually, that's a more winnable fight for him because Daniel Dubois is more flat-footed. And he doesn't have the foot speed of Joe Joyce. I mean, he does have a good chin, but you know, he's way too wide. He's too easy to hit, and he again. Joe Joyce is a guy you can easily hit too, but the thing is that he crowds you with his pressure. And he's got very good foot speed to the point that he doesn't give you room to reset. Daniel Dubois doesn't fight like that. He gives you room to operate. So that actually is a pretty good stylistic matchup for Joseph Parker. Not saying that he will win it, but I'm saying that again, Daniel Dubois does have a good shot of beating Joseph Parker. But as far as saying knocking him out is concerned, I don't know. I don't think that's a foregone conclusion. I think that's a more, because again, style makes fights. I think that's somewhat. I think Dubois' style is somewhat tailor made for Joseph Parker, the one who comes in at shape at 230, 240, 235 or 240. Joseph Parker, that is. So yeah. EJ says that Fury doesn't want no smoke with Joe Joyce. Oh yeah, I agree. I don't think he wants to fight Joe Joyce. I really don't think he wants that fight. To tell you the truth, I think, look, I would slightly favor Fury to win it, but I am not confident about Fury winning that fight at all. I'm not confident. So, yeah. Mala says that, hey, Henry Tillman beat Mike Tyson in the amateurs and got destroyed in the pros. So, you know, in the pro ranks in one round. The amateurs don't mean shit. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because times do evolve. Fighters change over the years after the amateurs. So, yeah, I agree with that. So, yeah. Joyce would eat Wilder's right hand and then the fight is over. Joyce would batter Wilder in mid and close range. Hey, that's possible. That can happen. And if Deontay Wilder, again, my advice to him and to everybody else, do not stand in front of Joe Joyce. You're not going to win a fight against him toe-to-toe. That's not going to happen. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to throw your combinations and get out of the way. You got to give him angles. Throw off his timing. That's the only way to beat a guy like that. Don't worry about knocking him out. If you hurt him, great. But don't even think about hurting the guy. You got to land your punches and get out of the way. You got to steal the rounds to beat Joe Joyce. That's the only way you're going to beat him. You cannot stand off and trade with him. And do not give him room to pressure you. I mean, yeah, if he pressure you, you got to punch, throw a couple pot shots, throw some combinations and get out of the way, and give him some angles like Usyk does. Confuse him, throw his timing off. That's the only way to beat a guy like that. So I do agree with Tony on that comment there. If he takes Wilder's power and Wilder's just standing there trying to trade with him, then Wilder's not winning that fight. I'm just keeping it real, and I'm a Deontay Wilder fan. He's not winning that fight if he's going to trade with him like that. So, yeah. Olive says, I think Joyce beats Wilder. He wouldn't give Wilder the space to load up on that long, straight right hand. Joyce really seems to understand how to call off the ring and weight bully his opponents. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't give you the range. That's what's so great. That's what's so good about Joe Joyce. He doesn't give you the range at all. He closes the gap, and it makes you think because he's making you think all over the place because you can't deal with the pressure. It's like you throw two good shots at him. Next thing out of nowhere, Joe Joyce is applying more pressure and throwing 3-4 unanswered punches. And again, those punches are hurting you. And he's not even putting much mustard into those shots. And that's what's frightening about him. That's how George Foreman used to fight back in the day. It's like when you look at George Foreman, it didn't look like he was loading up on his shots, but damn, it's like when he threw his shots at a slow pace, they will still hurt you because they're thudding. So, yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I just try to catch up, man, with the latest. So, yeah. Brotherhood says that Joyce's pace wasn't the same versus Dubois. Well, you know what? That's a good point. I think Hatman brought this up because the way Joe Joyce fights, he fights at a certain level against certain opponents. So what he mean by that is that if it's an opponent that Joe Joyce sees that he knows that, okay, he's not going to make me work too much, so let me just fight at a slower pace. But if I see an opponent like Joseph Parker that I know I'm going to have to work harder, then I know I got to be at my A game, I have to fight at a different pace. So, yeah, to your point, Joe Joyce fight at a certain pace depending on the opponent that he's going up against. So, yeah, that's definitely a very good point there. No, we'll see him. I think you may. Hey, shout out to Big Boys, Kiwi. I think what you mean by that is that will we see Joseph Parker again? Absolutely. He did say he wanted Dillian White rematch. I forgot to mention that. I think that's ideal. I think that's an ideal fight for Dillian White. And I think that would be a good fight for him to be made. I think should be an easy fight to make because I don't think Dillian is going to resign with Matchroom. That's the rumor mill right now. I think Dillian's going to go with Boxer. And yeah, you could go ahead and rematch between those two because we did get a very good fight a few years back. Both guys, I'm not saying maybe JOYCE-PARKER at this point is at the slide of his career, so is Dillian Whyte. So why not a crossroads fight between two heavyweights? And then top 10, that is. So let's go ahead and make that fight, get that rematch done. So yeah, why not? Tony says DDD is trash. I know we're not over here up and up a quitter now. I mean, look, again, it's no shame for Daniel Dubois to quit against Joe Joyce because look, he had a broken orbital bone in his eye. It's 2 more rounds ago. I know some people say he could at least survive the onslaught, but he wasn't going to risk his eye getting damaged any further because he couldn't get away. He couldn't see any of the jabs or the punches that Joe Joyce was throwing at him. So he said to himself, like, you know what? I don't want to risk my health or my vision here. So let me go ahead and quit and fight another day. Yes, I'm gonna get a little backlash for it, but it is what it is. You get back up, you take a loss, you win some, you lose some, you get back, you become stronger. So I don't shame Daniel Dubois for quitting. I don't at all because your eyes fucked up. Excuse my language, and you're not gonna risk your vision any longer. Maybe if he had one more round to go, then I could understand maybe he should have survived enough to go into that round. But he had 2 more rounds to go, and there was pretty much a lot more time left, especially if your eye's been compromised and you know your orbital bone is broken. So you're not going to risk that any further. So yeah. So that's just my opinion. Joyce had to be more cautious against Dubois since he hits like a mule. So Parker doesn't have elite power like that. He threw and landed everything he had against Joyce, and he had no effect. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Joe Joyce did fought a little bit more of a cautionary fight because he knew how hard the Dubois hits. So yeah, he had to be a little bit more cautionary about his power. But when he realized that Dubois was slowing down, and the fact that he was fatiguing, he knew that Dubois didn't really have much snap in his punches. So that's why he was able to take the risk and eat them and keep coming forward and pressuring him. So yeah, kind of similar to how Tyson Fury fought Deontay Wilder in the third fight. When he realized that Wilder, didn't have any more snap in his punches, he realized, and I think it was in the third round, Wilder was fatiguing and he was weakening. He realized it was now time to go ahead and go forward and pressure him. So yeah. Dillian has never been signed to Matchroom. He's always been on a fight-by-fight basis. Yeah. You know what? Thanks for correcting me on that, Tony. Yeah, I get that. But what I'm saying is that at the same time, yeah, he was always on a fight-by-fight basis, but he was still classified as a Matchroom fighter. So that's the point I was getting at. Mala says that Parker should come in against White or weighing around 255. He lands the same punches he landed on Joyce, he'll knock out White. Would it be risky to go in at 255 against a guy like Dillian Whyte at the end of his career? Maybe, because at this point, Dillian Whyte's punch resistance is gone, especially if you land uppercuts against him, because we know Dillian Whyte cannot defend that shot to save his life, and he can't seem to withstand that punch. I don't know, man. So yeah, maybe going in at 255 would be best for Parker. He could risk doing that again rather than going against a guy like Joe Joyce or maybe Alexander Usyk or Tyson Fury, or hell, even Deontay Wilder. Going in 255, especially a fighter like Deontay Wilder who's in shape, yeah, that's risky. Now, again, this is not Tyson Fury because Tyson Fury he's acclimated to the heavier weight, and he actually moves and he throws a lot of combinations, and he has a better jab than Parker. So, two different fighters, but it is what it is. Big Boy says that Parker wants to be out in December, and so 2 weeks off and back again. Yeah, he says that, but again, he did contradict himself to say that it's time for me to take a long vacation to go back home in New Zealand to see my family, my wife and kids, and also visit my grandfather. That's long overdue. So to me, that's implied that he won't be back in the ring anytime soon. But if he does get back in the ring, like before the end of the year, I think that's not wise because that was a bad beating he took, a terrible beating. But I got to give him a shout out though. He did, he did give the interview with ID Boxing 24 hours later. I thought he'd be in the hospital a little bit longer, but hey, it is what it is. But I do give Joseph credit. He's not hiding. He's not. He's showing his face. He's talking to people. I mean, unlike Deontay Wilder, unlike Anthony Joshua. I mean, Joshua will still post on his social media, but he doesn't give interviews after their losses immediately. He doesn't do that. I think in the Andy Ruiz one he did, the first fight that is, but the Alexander Usyk fights, nah, he kind of stood away a little bit, for but not as long as Wilder did after those two Tyson Fury losses. But Anthony Joshua did kind of hide a little bit after those two Usyk losses, so he did. But I got to give Joseph credit though; he did show his face. He wasn't hiding after the beating he took, and he's in good spirits. So I got to give him credit for that. Big Boy says, I don't want to see Parker coming over ever again, his elusiveness, and he's gone at that weight. Yeah, again, it was not wise for him to sacrifice his elusiveness and his speed just to gain strength. You're not going to outstrength a guy who's naturally stronger than you. That's not going to happen. So the best way to beat a guy like that is use your best attributes, which is your speed, your foot speed, your hand speed, and your elusiveness in your defense. That's the only way you get a chance of beating him. Let alone you're not going to knock him out. So I don't understand why Parker's team felt that the extra weight gain is going to benefit him against a guy like Joe Joyce. I just didn't understand that. Malo says that White doesn't have a good gas tank, so Parker knows he'll be able to catch his breath through the fight. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Very good point. So yeah, go ahead, set up the rematch between the two. If I have to favor favor a fighter, I probably favor Joseph Parker because I think Dillian right now doesn't have his punch resistance is gone, and yeah, he doesn't really. To me, Dillian, in my opinion, if anybody should retire, I think Dillian White should retire. To be honest with you, he should retire. And I have to bring this up too because there's some bit of a double standard on people suggesting what fighters should retire and what fighters should not retire. Because a lot of people said that Deontay Wilder should retire after those two beatings he took from Tyson Fury. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to argue against that if you believe that. Fair enough. But what I do not like, and I have to call this out for the double standard, is some people are going out there, and like me, myself, I said that Dillian White should retire after those knockout losses. He suffered 2 bad knockout losses in 2 of the last 3 fights, and they were horrible. His punch resistance, you could tell his punch resistance is gone. And then you got some idiots out there saying that why should you tell Dillian White should retire? Why should he retire? Why should he retire? He shouldn't retire. But like, wait a minute. You're the same person who said that Deontay Wilder should retire because he took bad beatings. I get that. But Dillian himself is taking bad beatings. He's got knocked out horribly in 2 of his last 3 fights. You could tell his punch resistance is not there anymore. If he can't take an uppercut, that Tyson Fury himself didn't even throw not much mustard into that shot. And he went down and he was hurt badly from an uppercut that didn't have much power into it. So what does that tell you? His punch resistance is bad. So to me, I think or gone, I should say. So again, don't have a double standard when you say one fighter should retire over the same reason, or for the same standard, I should say. So I just got to put that out there. Big Boy says that Parker has gotten through all his medical exams. Okay, so just need 10 to that cut. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, if he passes medical exams, then okay, so be it. But as far as getting back in the ring and sparring by the end of the year, no way. In fact, I think when Joseph goes home back in New Zealand, I think his wife is going to advise him to stay away from the ring for a while. You don't need this. You made a lot of money. You're financially set. I mean, what's the rush? What's the rush? Why you need to go back in there after taking a beating like that? I know you're hungry. I mean, you have the passion. I get it. But sometimes you got to step back and think about it. You have your family to think about right now. That the loved ones that care about you. Just step back, reassess yourself, take some time off like Deontay Wilder did. And don't even think about boxing right now. I mean, that's what I advise Joseph should do. But again, it's his career, it's his decision. But one thing I would say is that I don't think he should retire. I think he's still got a lot more left to offer in the heavyweight division. That's the way I see it. Olaf says that I want to reserve White and Parker as gatekeepers for prospects or contenders coming up. I really have no interest in 2 journeymen fighting each other. 5 years ago, they were top 10 heavyweights. Well, technically, they still are, but at this point of their careers, are they high-level journeymen? Maybe Dillian White is. Joseph Parker, I wouldn't say that, not quite yet. But Dillian definitely is. I think Dillian at this point of his career is a high-level journeyman. I think he will be a stepping stone for guys for coming up, like the prospects and the contenders like Philip Herkovich's or the Julie Zhang's, those type of guys, or even the Martin McCauley's, Daniel Dubois, Tony Yoka's, those type of guys. So, yeah. Moving on to some other topics here. Deontay Wilder. Speaking of him, I gotta comment on this. Deontay Wilder says that I'm a Hall of Famer. No questions. No question about it, right? Let me say this. It's all good, Kiwi. I can read through the errors, man. I can read through the errors. It's all good. I view Parker and White to be equal to Chisora. Nobody's giving Chisora a title shot. Well, the only one who's giving him a title shot possibly is Tyson Fury. But other than that, you do have a point, bit of a point, Olive. As far as Parker being equal to Chisora, like I said, I wouldn't go there yet, but White definitely. I think he's definitely a journeyman status right there, high level journeyman that is. So kind of on par with Derek Chisora. I do agree with you there. Now, as far as Deontay Wilder calling himself a Hall of Famer, no questions about it. Let me say this. The Hall of Fame has a very minimal standard when it comes to getting in, right? And the reason why I say this, because you have to look at fighters like Riddick Bowe, Buddy McGirt, Jess Willards, the Carlos Sarates, the Arturo Gattis, just to name a few, right? Or even Randy Turpin, right? And no disrespect to those guys. They all had big Hall of Fame. They all had Hall of Fame wins in their career, with the exception of Arturo Gatti. Okay, I get that. But what I will say is that none of those guys should even deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And I truly believe that. They should not be in the Hall of Fame because they don't really have that much in-depth work to show otherwise. Neither of those guys dominated the division. And nor those guys had, like, I mean, again, they all had, some of them had like one or two big wins as far as Hall of Fame Hall of Fame wins is concerned, but they still don't have the depth to call themselves all-time greats. I don't consider Riddick Bowe to be all-time great heavyweight. I really don't. Yes, he's got that win, 2 wins over Evander Holyfield, but that's all he's got. Riddick Bowe spent most of his heavyweight career avoiding all the top heavyweights. He did. So, but he gets into the Hall of Fame, back off the fact that he was an undisputed champion in his trilogies with Evander Holyfield, and he has 2 wins over him. So that's the reason why he got in. Okay. Jess Willard, he gets in because of his upset win over Jack Johnson. Same thing with Randolph Turpin. He gets in the Hall of Fame because his upset win over Sugar Ray Robinson. Arturo Gatti, okay, he gets in because he's known to be a fan favorite. He was a ticket seller. Yes, he was a multi-weight champion, but his trilogy, one of the best trilogies we ever seen. Him and Arturo Gatti. Him and Mickey Ward, right? But Arturo Gatti does not have any Hall of Fame wins. He's lost his Hall of Fame fights, all of them, but yet he's still in there. Now, my point I'm saying is that Deontay Wilder's, the Gennady Golovkins, they get in because of the fact that they were long-reigning champions, even though they fought a bunch of nobodies. Okay, but as far as Golovkin is concerned, the guys that he fought and beat were top 10 rated middleweights. But that's not his fault. He did what he had to do. But the fact is that his run is very questionable, it's debatable. Now, when it comes to Golovkin and his big fights, yes, he's won a couple of his big fights in controversial fashion. Derevchenko, many people felt he lost that fight, but he got the decision. Danny Jacobs, controversial win. Some people felt that he won that fight. Some people felt he lost that fight. And he lost his Hall of Fame the Hall of Fame fights that he did lose to. He had 3 times that crack at it. That was against Canelo Alvarez. He lost 2 fights against him and drew 1. So Deontay Wilder and Gennady Golovkin, let's be truthful here. Both of them don't deserve to be Hall of Famers, but they're both going to get in. Why Deontay Wilder is going to get in? 3 reasons, three variables. One, because he's been the last American heavyweight champion since Shannon Briggs, and that goes back to span of 9 years. Wilder's had been a champion for 5 years. He has 10 title defenses, tying Muhammad Ali's record. Yes, we know he fought a bunch of nobodies, with the exception of Luis Ortiz and maybe Don Brazil at the time because he was a good contender. But other than that, that was it. And he's known for his trilogies against Tyson Fury, which some would rate is one of the best heavyweight trilogies we ever seen. He did beat Tyson Fury, but based on those variables right there, that's why he's going to get in. But as far as being all-time great, no. Deontay Wilder's not even close. You can't rank him within the class of Muhammad Ali, with the Ezra Charles, with the Joe Lewises, with the Evander Holyfields, Mike Tysons, the Larry Holmes, the Joe Frazier's, the who else is there? Gene Tunney's, the Rocky Marcion. Yes, his resume is debatable, but I have to include him in there as well. And then I could go on and on and on. It's just like Lennox Lewis, the last heavyweight champion of the world, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world of our modern time. It's hard to rank Wilder amongst those guys. It's very impossible to do. He's not up there with them. Neither is Anthony Joshua, and neither is Tyson Fury. And I'll admit, both of those guys, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, would get in the Hall of Fame. If you ask me, I think Anthony Joshua is more deserving than Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. But as far as ranking those three, as far as all-time greats is concerned, no, not even close. Not even close. I'm sorry. Those three guys are nowhere near the all-time great status. Not even close. I know some Joshua fanboys may be triggered for me for saying that, but I'm just telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and Deontay Wilder are nowhere near all-time great heavyweights. And Tyson Fury fans can get mad at me, so fanboys, and so Deontay Wilder fanboys can get mad at me for saying that, but I'm telling the truth. They're not all-time great fighters. None of them are. Anthony Joshua, again, is more deserving to be in the Hall of Fame than those two guys, but at the same time, he's nowhere near all-time great. Nowhere near it. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. But back to Deontay Wilder for the most part. But if he really believes that, that's his belief. But he's nowhere near all-time great Hall of Fame. I mean, nowhere near all-time great. Nowhere near it. Yeah. Tony, let me see here. Let me read the comments here because I'm missing some. Let me see. Yeah, Bo's a Hall of Famer, but not an all-time great. Yeah, he definitely isn't. He's not a all-time great. He's not an all-time great. Not at all. Not even close. It's surprising to me that some people have Riddick Bowe as a top 10 great heavyweight. I mean, if they're saying that because of his wins over Vander Holyfield, then they really don't know Riddick Bowe's entire career. They haven't really studied it in depth. And by the way, speaking of Riddick Bowe, for Tyson Fury to go out and say that he's the only heavyweight to win all four major titles, then he's totally wrong, and he's diluting his fan base, I should say, because Riddick Bowe is actually the first guy to do it. As I wish Tyson Fury be called out on that for that lie, so I have to point that out. Tony Review says that Rocky Balboa is in the Hall of Fame. I'm sure Wilder would make it. He'll make it, even though his resume is weak. Well, Rocky Balboa means Sylvester Stallone. The difference is Sylvester Stallone is getting in not because he's a fighter. Obviously, he's a fictional fighter, Rocky Balboa. Sylvester Stallone got in because of his contribution to the sport of boxing. Now, what it might mean by the contribution is that Sylvester Stallone helped mainstream boxing with his Rocky films. We have to give him credit for that. He did. He helped mainstream the sport with his Rocky films, and he also helped further contribute to the sport when he had when he introduced the Contenders reality show series along with Sugar Ray Leonard. I think it was somebody else. I think it was Al Bernstein, I believe. But his contributions with the Rocky films, with the Contender, helped him get into the Hall of Fame. So as a contributor, not as a fighter, but as a contributor. So yeah. Now, as far as Wilder is concerned, yeah, weak resume, but with those 10 title defenses, given the fact that he's the last American heavyweight champion we had since Shannon Briggs, and that's a span of 9 years, and that he had a great trilogy with Tyson Fury. Those three attributes are the reason why he's going to get in. But as far as being an all-time great, not even close. Not even close. Yeah, so we all in agreement that he will get in, but as far as being an all-time great, no, not even close. Same thing with Gennady Golovkin. Even though he has been a dominant middleweight, but as far as him being an all-time great middleweight, that's definitely debatable because he doesn't have those all-time great wins to back up that argument. As far as putting him in there with the ranks of the Sugar Ray Robinsons, the Ezra Charles, the Charlie Burleys, the Marvin Haglers, the Bernard Hopkins, the Harry Grebs, it's the Tiger Flowers, the Dick Tigers of the world. You can't put him in that class. Tony Zale, it's hard to put him in there in Golovkin and rank him amongst those guys. It's hard to do that. There's no depth. There's no depth at all. I hate to say that. So yeah. Usyk, yeah, Big Boys is at 10 title defenses is all you need. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, not saying great fighters. There's many fighters that have more title defenses than Deontay Wilder. but they're not in the Hall of Fame. Like Spanaki, for example, at super middleweight. Spanaki holds the record for the most title defenses at super middleweight, I believe. And yet, he's not in the Hall of Fame. And you know why he's not in the Hall of Fame? Because all his big wins, and by the way, Spanaki retired undefeated, but all his wins, his big wins, were very controversial. They were all gift decisions, and they were all based in Germany. So that's probably why he's not in the Hall of Fame, because of those controversial wins. Even though he holds a record for most title defenses at super middleweight. I think there were more than 10. I think he had 12 defenses at super middleweight, or 13. So yeah. Usyk is closer to ATG than those three. Well, absolutely. Absolutely. As far as ATG is concerned, Usyk goes down to ATG because of the fact that what he did at cruiserweight, it arguably is the greatest cruiserweight of all time. Now, again, I say arguably because Evander Holyfield, some people are going to say, well, Evander Holyfield still hold that prestige. But if you argue that Alexander Usyk is the greatest cruiserweight of all time, then I'm not really going to argue against that, because there is a good argument to be made there. But besides that, he went up to heavyweight and became a unified heavyweight, lineal heavyweight champion. He did that in four fights at heavyweight. So, and he's had a great amateur career, one of the greatest amateurs we ever seen. So Usyk, that alone is all-time great status right there for Alexander Usyk. Now, as far as being a great heavyweight, no, because Usyk definitely needs more work. He needs more depth to do, at heavyweight to be an all-time great heavyweight. But as an all-time great fighter overall, Usyk's definitely there. He's definitely there. He's definitely there. Bo had a great trilogy. That's all he did. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And he ducked out all the rest of the division. He didn't want to fight Ray Mercer. He ducked out of that fight. People don't talk about that. He ducked out of the Ray Mercer fight. He ducked out of infamously ducked out of the Lennox Lewis fight. He didn't want no part of Mike Tyson. I know Mike Tyson said in an interview with Larry King years ago that the reason why him and Riddick Bowe didn't fight is because they're buddies. They grew up together. They like brothers in Catskill, New York. I get all that. In Brooklyn or somewhere in New York. They were childhood friends. I get all that. But the point is that Riddick Bowe didn't even want to fight him. You know, yes, he wanted to fight George Foreman, but George Foreman didn't want that fight. Didn't fight Shannon Briggs. You know, it's like this guy was avoiding all the top heavyweights I could play, and he was getting away with it. But you know, I could see why he was able to get away with it, because back then there was not much accountability like it is now. So if Riddick Bowe fought in today's standards, a lot of people would have lit him up and ridiculed him like Tyson Fury. To me, Tyson Fury is a modern version of Riddick Bowe. I think there's the similarity there. There's a similarity. So yeah, let's not forget that Wilder ducked Briggs. Yeah, you know what? At first, I thought that I was defending Deontay Wilder in that situation, but looking back at that, I think it did happen, because Deontay Wilder offered Briggs a contract to fight as last minute replacement because of the Povetkin situation. That's before the whole Meldonia thing. Wilder was supposed to fight Povetkin in January 2016, but Povetkin's team requested a stay or a delay of that fight, and they were granted that delay. So Wilder needed an opponent for January. Shannon Briggs was offered the contract. Supposedly he accepted the terms, but what I heard, Shannon Briggs did not accept the terms. He actually wanted more money for that fight, and so Wilder's team decided to not offer it to him. But the one guy he did duck was Amir Mansour. Amir Mansour actually accepted the terms. The next thing you know, Wilder's team came back and said they rescinded the offer. That was the guy he did duck. As far as Briggs is concerned, I know Briggs kind of denied that, but at the same time, from what I've heard, there's two sides to every story. The story was that Briggs requested more money, and that's why the fight got turned. That's why the fight didn't get made. But as far as Amir Mansour accepted the terms. They gave him the money, whatever money payday they offered to him. He took it, and the next they rescinded it, just like Povetkin did with Amir Mansour. So, yeah, that I do recall. Olaf says, I have Usyk and Fury deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. Both Klitschko's already, right? Yeah, both Klitschko brothers are in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Vitaly and Vladimir, they're both in. As far as Usyk and Fury is concerned, Usyk deserves to be a Hall of Fame, no question about it. Fury, no. He definitely needs more work. He needs more depth. He needs a lot more work to be considered to be more deserving. But will he get in at this stage of his career? Yeah, he will. But as far as depth is concerned, as far as pedigree, as far as that, no, he's not he's not deserving in my opinion. No, he's not. What's Fury getting in? Well, again, if he retires right now, he'll go into the Hall of Fame. But is he deserving of it? No, he's not. If Usyk can beat Fury, he'll be a top 10 all-time great. Yeah, maybe, maybe, maybe. But I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, that's hard to tell. I mean, beating Fury. I mean, because again, as far as top 10 is concerned, that list is very, very steep, and you can always tweak it. But again, if you tweak it, I'm not sure if Usyk gets in. That's why I say maybe, because I'm not sure about that. But I mean, again, it's all subjectivity. I mean, we have to see once those guys fight and Usyk does beat them, then then we can look at that. Usyk became heavyweight champion in his third heavyweight fight. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. He became a unified champion in 4 heavyweight fights, beating Chaz Witherspoon, Shazor, and Joshua twice. So that right there is, very amazing. It's spectacular. It's very remarkable for what Usyk was able to do. At this point, he had a faster success than Evander Holyfield at heavyweight, because remember, Evander, when he came into the heavyweight ranks, he was fighting nothing but a lot of B, maybe C plus contenders. And some of those guys he beat were top 10 rated heavyweight. So we got to give him credit there before he got a shot at the heavyweight title. That was against Buster Douglas. And that was like, what, 3 years when Evander entered the heavyweight ranks? 3 years in. So, yeah, Usyk did it in what, 1 year, I believe? When was his first heavyweight fight? Actually, 2 years. I think it was in 2019 was his first heavyweight fight. He did it in 2 years, and Evander did it in 3. So, yeah. What else is there as far as listing topics concerned? Speaking of Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, the saga continues. Joshua comes out today and says that he posted this on social media. He did a little recording with his buddies out there. They were hanging out. And he said that I will sign the contract, and you should know. This is an indirect message of Tyson Fury. He told him that you should know better that we all have our legal teams involved when it comes to these contracts, as far as reviewing them is concerned. You do understand that we have to make sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. So I will sign the contract. Don't worry about that. And then Anthony Joshua goes on this freestyle, talking about Tyson Fury and about his career. Freestyle rapping, that is. Now, some people are criticizing it and talking about, is it fringed? Is it cringed, I should say. Some part of it is cringy. And some people are making fun of Joshua, talking about, you've been hitting the head way too many times, man. I guess those Usyk fights really got you some brain damage, or the Reeves fight, that is. I don't know about that, because Anthony Joshua definitely still got his faculties. But as far as him acting bizarrely, I don't think this is bizarre behavior. It's just a little fun, having a little freestyle. But I think he still is a little annoyed by Tyson Fury's antics. Now, do I believe this fight's going to be made? No. And to be honest with you, I'm very tired talking about it. But I do find it a little bit jarring to me is that Eddie Hearn, within 24 hours, Eddie Hearn did say that they will not sign that contract on Monday. So Joshua coming out today, totally contradicting Eddie Hearn, what he says. Now, to me, I have to ask myself, and we also all have to ask ourselves this question. Are Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn on the same page here? Are they at odds again? Because why would Joshua come out and contradict his promoter and say that he's going to sign the contract while Eddie Hearn says they're not going to sign the contract? So a lot of squabbling going on here, man. This thing is very confusing to me. So I don't know. Like I said, we'll have to wait and see what happens on Monday. But if you ask me, I'm not gonna hold my breath for this one. This fight's not gonna happen. I'll be shocked if this thing happens. And if it does happen, I know I already laid out my prediction in several videos. Tyson Fury is going to beat the crap out of Anthony Joshua. Joshua's not winning that fight. I just don't see how he wins it, especially coming off back-to-back losses and lost 3 of his last 5 fights with his confidence shot right now. So, yeah, I'm sick of hearing about Fury and Joshua right now. Let's just move on. When they do fight, let's not announce it, how the negotiations are going behind the scenes, because we're going back to this whole merry-go-round again like we did back in 2021. So please, let's move on. Big Boy says that let's get Joshua versus Herkovich. Sick of pissing around with Fury and Joshua, even though I want to see it. Yeah, I mean, I agree there. As far as Herkovich is concerned, he's got a shot at Alexander Usyk. I don't think he's going to want to fight Anthony Joshua right now. I think he's going to wait till I think the IBF is rumored to mandate that fight. So I think he's going to wait for that shot opposed to fighting Anthony Joshua. But again, I don't mind seeing Herkovich versus Joshua. Now, that would be a good, interesting fight. Who would I favor? I think that's a 50-50 fight. And the reason why I'm saying that is that going back off his last performance, Villa Herkovich, that is, Herkovich truly lost against Zhou Zhang. He lost that fight. But it is on paper that he won, but it is what it is. He did have an off night, but who knows? He may turn up, a different guy against Anthony Joshua, more gamed, more focused, not distracted. So we'll see. I mean, tailor-made, yeah. Anthony Joshua's style is tailor-made for Fila Herkovich. So, yeah, I give Herkovich a good chance of winning that fight. I mean, it's a 50-50 fight. So, yeah, I agree there. I don't know, guys. I think that's all. This is a pretty. No, we're over an hour and 20 minutes now. So I didn't want to make this too long. But yeah, before I go, I want to give my brief post-fight review with about Harper-Rankin versus Terry Harper. Now, in case you guys know, the fight did take place on the undercard of Gallahan versus Maxie Hughes. And Terry Harper was coming up for 130 pounds. So she's moved up 3 weight classes and fight Harper-Rankin at 154 pounds. And Harper-Rankin is the WBC champion. Now, Terry Harper, I believe, is the second fighter to do this, to jump up 3 weight classes to fight a champion. And that was the first fighter was Natasha Jonas, and she did that months ago when she fought. I think it was Lindbergh, I believe. Marie Lindbergh. No, it was not Marie Lindbergh. Who was it that she fought for the WBO title? But anyways, Terry Harper schooled Harper-Rankin, clearly outclassed her, outboxed her, gave her angles, and visibly frustrated Rankin too, and then busted up her eye too. So I think it was her nose or her eye, but Harper clearly dominated the fight. She definitely looked healthy at the weight. But it's amazing and it's jarring that you got 2 women who previously came from 130, both of them who had a lot of trouble making that weight, by the way, go up to 154 and win a title. Natasha Jonas beat 2 champions back to back, so she's a unified champion at 154. And yeah, I know Rankin is not that great, but you expect her to be the bigger woman, be the naturally bigger woman to overpower Harper. But Harper clearly outclassed her. So Harper is now the WBA and the IBO, minor IBO champion. So given the fact that we both have Terry Harper and Natasha Jonas as the super welterweight champions, I think now it's time to get that rematch, because we were waiting for that rematch for a while now. And they had a damn good fight. And I think in that year, probably the best fight of the year as far as the women's category is concerned. I think we need to get that rematch, and it's time. If you ask me who I favor, I don't know. It's a tough call. Maybe Natasha Jonas, because she's looked much better between the two in their recent fights. So, and again, both of them are not going to be compromised like they were at 130. So, yeah, I think we need to get that unification on and to get that rematch between Natasha Jonas and Terry Harper. So, yeah. So, if you ask me who the scorecard is concerned, Terry Harper won that fight all 10 rounds. I didn't give him Rankin not 1 round. If you want to give her the benefit of the doubt, maybe the 4th round, but other than that, that was it. Rankin lost that fight. To me, she clearly lost every single round. Let's talk about how awful Serrano looked on Saturday night. She's too old to be yo-yoing around up and down in weight. I think she's getting upset in the next couple of fights. Yeah, I did talk about this yesterday. Amanda didn't look great. She clearly won the fight, no question about it, against Mahmoud, but I don't know if she was lethargic. Maybe she was bothered by the event. Maybe she was jet lagged because she took the fight overseas. But that shouldn't even really bother Amanda Serrano, because she's fought all over the world. So I don't know what was going on. I know she looked a little lethargic. She didn't look quite as sharp, but she definitely won the fight. But she didn't look quite as sharp. So that performance was pretty subpar. Pretty subpar from the standard of Amanda Serrano. Maybe going up and down the weight is really taking a toll on her body. Maybe it is. So, but she did hint that she wants to stay at 126. So she doesn't have no intentions of going back and go back down and weight anymore. So yeah. Rankin was dismissive of Harper by saying she's irresponsible, is going up too many weights. She thought it'd be easy fight. Well, yeah. Well, Hannah Rankin definitely got a rude awakening for that. She thought she could overpower and bully Harper, but that clearly didn't happen. So, yeah. Yeah, see, Hearn is suing Jake Paul for defamation. Jake shouldn't have accused Hearn for paying off Glenn Feldman. Now he's going to pay for it. You know what? I talked about that yesterday, and someone brought this up and said, you know what? Maybe this lawsuit is a bit of a facade in a way. And the reason why this person alluded to that is because maybe it is just to get Jake Paul to shut his mouth or get him to retract a little bit, because sometimes these things can be dismissed without prejudice, meaning that, okay, I'll agree to these terms. I'll settle on these terms as long as you don't bring it up again, as long as you don't sue me for the same standard again. Or could have been dismissed with prejudice, which means I get to sue you again if you keep bringing this up. So, as far as $100 million is concerned, there's no way Jake Paul has that type of assets. No fucking way. So, but then again, Eddie Hearn is claiming that the accusations did damage his brand. It cost him financially. We don't know that for sure, but that's what Eddie Hearn is saying. But I don't know. But the point is that, yes, you can't accuse anyone. I do agree. You can't accuse anyone without substantial evidence. But we all know that Glenn Feldman has some shady scorecards over the recent years. And I've defended him on a couple of fights. But the Manny Pacquiao fight where he gave Keith Thurman the fight, yeah, that right there was suspect. He gave Katie Taylor 7 rounds over Amanda Serrano. And Tony and I watched that fight. We clearly thought Serrano won that fight. And we thought Katie Taylor got a gift decision yet again. And I wonder, was Glenn Feldman also scoring the first Katie Taylor and Fine Pursuit fight? I'm curious about that, so I'm going to look into that. But Glenn Feldman definitely needs to be looked into. He needs to be investigated. And I'm glad Rob Tibbett, again, I have to keep alluding to this, and I keep bringing this up. Rob Tibbett caught Glenn Feldman at the end of the Usyk and Joshua second fight and asked him point blank and straight in his face and asked him, how did you see the fight for Usyk versus Joshua? How did you see the Joshua win? And Glenn Feldman tried to be a snide individual with a smart ass comment talking about I scored the way I did. And Rob Tibbett followed up with that and said, well, okay, how did you see 7 rounds for Joshua? Just answer the question. And he didn't want to answer the question. So he said, just go ahead and talk to my supervisor. I mean, if that's not suspect, I don't know what is. I really think that Glenn Feldman needs to be investigated. He really does, man. Somebody really need to look into his fights and see why he judges them the way he does. So, yeah. Here's the thing. Serrano was supposed to fight on Jake Paul's card, so she could have overtrained. Yeah, that's a possibility too. And I think she took the fight on a pretty short notice, because I realized this fight did get announced out of nowhere, and it caught me off by surprise. So maybe she did overtrain. So that is a possibility, but she did look a little lethargic in that fight against Mahmoud. Well, Hearns is only suing Paul because he wouldn't publicly apologize for what I heard. Yeah, I heard about that too. He wasn't quite retracted, so that's probably why he filed this suit with his through his lawyer. So I guess this suit is a wake up call, because of what I realized, Jake Paul took down his comments about his feelings about Glenn Feldman. He took it down, so I guess that is some form of apology that Eddie Hearn was seeking. It'd be funny as fuck if Jake Paul does go to court and it is a discovery on Hearn, and it turns the table that he was paying off Feldman. I'll be dying laughing if that did came out. Yeah, you know what? That would be amazing if that actually did happen. But it's very difficult to prove that a judge has been bought off by a promoter or a network. It's very difficult to prove that unless there's somebody else involved in that payoff. They come out and speak against that. But again, I really believe that Glenn Feldman does warrant an investigation over to his scoring of these high-profile fights. There has to be an investigation. We have to look into it. So, yeah. All right, guys. I think that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. I'm going to give a shout out to everybody that came in into the chat. Shout out to Tony Reviews, Big Boys Boxing, Mala, Outlaw Pugilists, the Brotherhood, EJ Boxing Live. I know EJ think I'm hating, but he's a big hater. It's all good though. Shout out to EJ. Who else came in here? Olive the Mighty. So other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down. Other than that, I am out with you guys. Take care. Until next time. Peace.